In this video, we're going to show you how to win any situation without saying a single word. Not through manipulation, but through something far more primal. Presence, restraint, and the quiet violence of the superior mind. There is a kind of man whose presence changes the atmosphere of a room before he utters a single word. You know him, not because he announced himself, because everyone else fell silent when he entered. He does not need to speak. He does not need to smile or posture. His very being is enough. That is presence, not charisma, not charm, not flamboyance, but raw existential weight. And it is the foundation of silent dominance. To understand presence, one must first unlearn everything modernity has taught about confidence. You are told to be loud, to make eye contact, to project. But what are these if not signals of insecurity masked as strength? The one who truly holds power has no compulsion to prove it. His stillness is not hesitation. It is control. His silence is not a lack of words. It is a refusal to participate in games beneath him. This kind of presence emerges from something deeper than appearance. It is rooted in self-possession, a full ownership of one's desires, fears, and impulses. When a man is not at war with himself, the world cannot wage war against him. He walks through chaos untouched because nothing within him is unstable. The crowd reacts, adjusts, and defends. But he remains not because he is unaware, because he is unconcerned. Most people walk into a room looking for a signal, an invitation to belong, a cue to perform, a mirror to reflect their worth. Presence is parasitic. It requires energy from others to feel alive. But the individual of power brings his own gravity. He does not orbit, he commands orbit. Others glance at him, not because he asks for it, but because his lack of demand is a form of defiance. His silence creates tension. His stillness generates pressure, and in that tension, others begin to crumble. This presence does not come from pretending to be strong. Pretending, in fact, is the greatest giveaway of weakness. It comes from having faced the unbearable truths of life and survived. It comes from carrying pain without complaint, from knowing what you are capable of and never needing to prove it. A man like this does not boast of his strength. He merely embodies it. He does not explain himself because he understands that explanation is a plea. To explain is to desire understanding, but he desires nothing from others. His satisfaction is internal, and that, precisely, is why others bend to him. The moment you stop craving attention, attention begins to follow you. The moment you stop needing validation, others begin to wonder what you know that they do not. Presence is not what you do, it's what you withhold. In a world that is addicted to exposure, restraint becomes power. In a society obsessed with proving worth, indifference becomes intimidation. Look at how animals behave in nature. The predator does not roar before it strikes. It watches. It moves minimally. It gives away nothing. Why? Because it does not need to convince anyone that it is a threat. Only the weak make noise. Only the uncertain show off. The apex creature is defined by its stillness, its quiet confidence, its complete lack of desperation. The same law applies to human beings, no matter how much we veil ourselves in culture and sophistication. Presence is biological. It is felt before it is interpreted. People react to your posture, your gaze, your composure long before you speak. And if all those are aligned, your words are irrelevant. You've already won. Consider this: the man who walks slowly, speaks rarely, and looks directly but briefly. He is not avoiding connection, he is conserving energy, and that conservation is felt as control. He chooses where to place his focus. He is not pulled by the crowd, he is not seduced by reaction, he does not flinch, even under pressure. And when he does speak, it lands with the weight of silence that preceded it. Presence is not taught, it is earned. Earned through solitude, through loss, through restraint. Earned by building a mind that no longer needs the world to make it feel real. The man with presence has already buried his ego, and what remains is something calmer, darker, and far more powerful. The world belongs to those who do not flinch. In every encounter, every confrontation, every subtle exchange of power, there is a silent measurement happening beneath the surface. Who reacts first? Who breaks form? Who loses control? It is not the loudest voice or the sharpest wit that wins, the individual who remains still while others unravel. The one who controls his response controls the outcome. Reaction is a confession. Every time you respond impulsively to a word, a look, or an insult, you reveal yourself. You declare to the world where your weaknesses lie. You expose what unsettles you, triggers you, what owns you. And in that moment, power slips from your grasp. You become readable, predictable, defeatable. The truly dominant figure is not the one who strikes back. It is the one who renders the opponent irrelevant through indifference. To master your reactions is to make yourself untouchable, not immune but sovereign. The difference is crucial. Immunity implies insensitivity, a kind of dullness. Sovereignty, however, implies awareness without submission. You feel everything, but you let nothing dictate your state. Pain arrives, you observe it. Anger rises, you contain it. Praise is offered, you ignore the bait. The moment you are ruled by external events, you forfeit your internal kingdom. Reaction is the leash by which the world leads the weak, but mastery is not achieved through repression. The man who suppresses his emotions does not become stronger, he becomes a ticking clock. Sooner or later, the pressure breaks him. Mastery is not about hiding emotion, it is about transmuting it. To take the heat of insult and turn it into silence. To take the sting of betrayal and turn it into distance. To respond without noise, without explanation, without desperation. This is power, not because it is cold, but because it is precise. In the modern world, everything is designed to provoke you. Social media is engineered to make you react. Conversations are framed to draw you in. Arguments are baited to trigger your ego. The one who takes the bait loses. Every time you react, you affirm that the other person has influence over your state of mind, that they can reach into your inner world and cause movement. This is slavery in disguise. True strength is when others throw their worst at you, and you remain as you were, untouched, unmoved, observing from above. Reaction is the language of the slave. When insulted, he justifies. When challenged, he explains. When disrespected, he retaliates. All of this is weakness wearing the mask of strength. The man who must always respond is a man who is never in control. He is a puppet pulled by invisible strings, his emotions, his fears, his pride. But the one who has broken this dependency, who no longer feels compelled to respond, becomes dangerous. He becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is the seed of fear in the minds of others. You must become your own observer. Learn to see your triggers not as injustices to be corrected, but as signals of what still owns you. Every time you are drawn into reaction, you are revealing that some part of you still depends on the external world to feel whole. The path to dominance is internal. You dismantle the mechanisms that demand revenge, validation, applause. In their place, you build composure, a cold, clear stillness that sees everything but reacts to nothing it does not choose. It is not that words and actions have no impact. It is that their impact is filtered through a mind that has learned patience. And patience is not passivity. It is weaponized restraint. It is the ability to absorb the moment and let others expose themselves through their own instability. The more someone tries to provoke you and fails, the more they exhaust themselves. Your silence becomes their mirror. They look into it, hoping to find weakness, and instead see their own desperation reflected back. To master reaction is to reverse the power dynamic. Others will speak, gesture, provoke, but you remain still. And in that stillness, they begin to doubt themselves. They question their approach, their confidence, even their own significance. What they thought would shake you only reveals how fragile they are. You have become the still point in a turning world. You decide when and whether to move. You are not played, you are the player. This is not control over others, it is the deeper control over oneself, from which all outward authority flows. The undefined is feared. The uncertain, the unreadable, the one who cannot be easily categorized. He becomes a source of psychological disturbance to those who seek clarity as a form of comfort. In a world that demands identity, certainty, and explanation, ambiguity becomes a weapon sharper than any spoken threat. The man who says nothing, who reveals little, who defies interpretation, holds the highest ground. He forces others to make meaning in his silence, and in that desperate attempt to understand him, they begin to lose control of themselves. To be ambiguous is not to be lost or confused. It is to have mastered the art of appearing unclear while remaining deeply intentional. You do not display your emotions because they are no one's business. You do not advertise your intentions because mystery generates tension. People want to read you, they want to label you, reduce you, define you, because the moment they succeed in doing so, they feel safe. You rob them of that comfort. You give them no such clarity. What makes ambiguity powerful is the pressure it puts on others. When you speak clearly, you offer them ground to stand on. When you emote openly, you give them a path into your inner world. But when you hold your cards in complete silence, when your eyes do not flinch, when your words, if any, are sparse and precise, the people around you begin to project. They imagine you as friend or enemy, weak or strong, confident or arrogant, but they can never confirm it. The tension builds not because of what you do, but because of what you withhold. That tension is yours. That control is yours. The ambiguous man controls the narrative by never committing to one. Others talk and explain and confess. Desperate to be understood, desperate to be liked. He lets others interpret him however they wish, knowing that their interpretations say more about them than about him. Every time someone attempts to draw a conclusion about him, they reveal their own mind. He becomes a mirror, silent, still reflective. And in that mirror, others reveal their assumptions, fears, and insecurities. To weaponize ambiguity is to understand the psychology of uncertainty. Most people cannot bear not knowing. They crave the relief of conclusion. They will invent stories to fill the gaps you leave. Let them. When they do, they are no longer observing you. They are constructing you, and anything constructed from imagination is vulnerable to collapse. When they realize their construction does not match reality, they become unsure. When they are unsure, they hesitate, and hesitation is the beginning of defeat. Ambiguity also protects. The more you reveal about yourself, the more ammunition you give others to control or attack you. People cannot target what they cannot see. They cannot challenge what they cannot define. By staying undefined, you become untouchable, not invincible, but elusive, like smoke or shadow. They may try to grasp you, but their hands return empty. You move without warning. You act without permission. You think without broadcasting. Your life is not lived for the consumption of others, and that denial alone unsettles them. Control is not always about dominance in speech or presence. It is about managing perception. When you make others unsure of who you are, they begin to shift their behavior around you. Some become cautious, others become fascinated, and a few grow hostile. But all of them are reacting to a vacuum, and that vacuum is your design. You leave open space where they expected certainty. You give pause where they expected response. You show nothing when they expected weakness or anger or eagerness. This unpredictability creates psychological leverage. The ambiguous individual is often mistaken for detached or aloof, but in reality, he is highly observant. He watches while others speak. He listens while others defend themselves. He stores every reaction, every slip, every mask others forget to wear. His silence is not absence, it is strategy. It forces others to speak more, to reveal more, to try harder. And the more they try, the more power he accumulates. He understands that clarity can be a trap. That openness is often surrender disguised as honesty. You become powerful when your next move cannot be anticipated. You become feared when others do not know whether your silence hides kindness or cruelty, support or sabotage. They tread carefully around you not because you have threatened them, but because they do not know what you are capable of. And so they guess. And in guessing, they expose themselves. They play their hands too soon. They break form while you remain composed, unreadable, undefined. Ambiguity becomes your cloak, and in that cloak, you walk unnoticed into places where others would be resisted or rejected. You are not everywhere, but you are suspected everywhere. You are not loud, you are never forgotten. You are not fully known, but you are constantly watched, and that, in silence, domination. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of power. It is not what remains when speech is withheld, it is what emerges when speech is no longer necessary. Most people speak to fill the void, to soften tension, to maintain appearances. They speak out of fear of being misunderstood, misjudged, forgotten. But the one who truly understands power does not speak to protect himself. He speaks only when it serves a purpose. And when he does not speak, his silence becomes a verdict. Words are often used as weapons, but more often they are used as shields. People talk to justify themselves, to prove their worth, to assert their existence. They argue not because they are right, but because they are unsure. They explain not because it is needed, but because they seek permission to be. This constant rush to defend, to clarify, to be liked, it is a display of inner unrest, and those who are at war within will always make noise without. The man who is at peace, however, has no such compulsions. His silence is not void, it is authority. There is a certain cruelty in silence that no insult can match. When someone expects a response and receives none, they are forced to confront themselves. They are given no mirror, no reaction, no external confirmation that they exist in your world. And that absence becomes a kind of judgment, colder, deeper, and far more unsettling than any words could offer. It says you are not worth my breath. You are not worthy of correction, of conflict, of notice. You simply are not. In that denial, there is punishment. Silence disrupts rhythm. Conversation is a game, a dance of cues and responses. When you refuse to play, the rhythm breaks. The other is left suspended in uncertainty, trying to guess your thoughts, trying to fill the void with their own noise. They escalate, hoping to provoke. They become agitated, not because of what you did, but because of what you refuse to do. Your restraint disarms them. Your refusal to react is interpreted as superiority. Whether it is true or not, it becomes real in their mind. And in the realm of human behavior, perception is everything. To remain silent when others expect submission is rebellion. To remain silent when others demand defense is dominance. And to remain silent when others insult, provoke, or beg for attention, that is a kind of invisible sword. It cuts not with noise, but with absence. Most do not have the strength to wield it. They believe silence makes them look weak. They believe that by not responding, they are surrendering. But the opposite is true. Only the one who does not need to win can afford to be silent. Only the one who already knows his worth can afford to walk away from the game entirely. There is a particular silence that follows knowledge, a kind of stillness that comes from having seen enough, lost enough, suffered enough, that no further argument is needed. When you've walked through fire and returned with your soul intact, the chatter of the crowd becomes meaningless. Their judgments, their doubts, their praise, none of it touches you. You have gone beyond words. And from that place, when you look at others and say nothing, it is not because you have nothing to say, it is because they are not ready to hear it. Or worse, they would not understand it. In a room full of people trying to prove themselves, the one who sits silently, watching unmoved, becomes the axis around which the room turns. People begin to feel exposed in his presence, not because he accused them, but because he didn't. His silence suggests he already sees through them. No justification will suffice. That their display is transparent. The more they perform, the more foolish they feel. And the more foolish they feel, the more they crave acknowledgement. But silence denies them even that. It deprives them of the very fuel they need to keep pretending. This kind of silence is not passive. It is active judgment. It says, I have measured you and found you lacking. It says, I do not waste energy where there is no value. And even when spoken to directly, even when challenged or provoked, the choice to remain silent becomes a declaration of self-mastery. You are no longer reacting to the world is reacting to you. People feel your absence more than they hear your presence. They begin to speak more around you, not because you inspire confidence, but because your stillness pressures them into exposing themselves. The fear of silence is the fear of facing oneself, and the one who commands silence in a conversation, in a confrontation, in a crowd, becomes a reminder of that fear. He is not merely quiet, he is a symbol, a mirror in which people see the very noise they use to avoid their own emptiness. And so they speak and speak, hoping to fill the space he leaves untouched. But the space remains, and in that space their illusions collapse. His silence was not the absence of opinion, it was the presence of verdict, and they felt it before they even realized it was being delivered in a world dominated by noise. The one who masters silence becomes a force that cannot be opposed. He does not announce his presence, yet it is felt. He does not react, yet he commands. He does not explain, yet he is obeyed. His power lies not in performance, but in restraint. In stillness, he destabilizes the frantic. In ambiguity, he disturbs the predictable. In silence, he delivers judgment more severe than any words could. This is not the path of the passive. It is the path of the sovereign, the one who has conquered the chaos within and no longer needs the approval, fear, or understanding of others to affirm his existence. He has no interest in being seen, yet all eyes turn toward him. He does not chase control. He embodies it. You do not need to shout to be heard. You do not need to strike to leave a scar. When you master presence, reaction, ambiguity, and silence, you gain the power to win without lifting a finger. Because in the end, the most dominant man is not the one who is loudest in the room, but the one the room cannot stop thinking about, even after he's gone.